Currently, Larry Centers is number one all time with 827 receptions by a running back. Alvin Kamara is eighth. He's behind Keith Byers by only 5. Alvin Kamara has 573 receptions. So welcome to Just the Stats NFL, the show that covers the NFL statistical leaders from the all-time greats to the current players leading the NFL. So I'm Ernie Jennings, your host, and this is our first week of looking at regular season games for 2025. Everything else has been a precursor to the regular season. So from here on out, for the whole season into the playoffs, we'll be looking at the matchups every game that's being played each week. I'll look at them pregame, and then I'll have a post-game look as well in some podcasts after the games. So it'll be a fun time. My podcast will be a little different than some of these other ones you might listen to. I'm going to be looking at players on your favorite team or teams you're just interested in the players, for example, that are in the top 10 or setting to be in the top 10 of the NFL in various categories. So I'll let you know about those players that have a chance to move into the top 10 or move up in the top 10 or maybe leading in the top 10, whether it's on their team or the NFL as a whole. So we'll go through each game doing that. Game by game, I'll also list the record between the teams that are playing. Once the season gets going, as I do this, I'll also list the team's record during the season so that you kind of get an idea where they stand in the regular season. And also as the season goes after week 1, obviously, because we don't have any stats right now, but I'll list the stats for the NFL, like who's the number one quarterback and so forth, wide receiver, running back, that type of thing. And we'll look at those, give that a look, and then we'll go through the games for the week. So that's kind of the outlook. And then afterwards, the post-game one, we'll be looking at who did set a record. Now, some of these could be an in-game record, like a game-only record, which obviously I'm not going to be listing possible game records that might be broken because there's no way to know that. But when you're looking at the all-time stats in different categories, you can see players that are close to breaking a record and the likelihood that they could break it in the game that they're playing this week. So we'll be looking at that. So it'll be a fun time. And then I will give as I look at each game, I'll give you a little fantasy outlook on the players that I feel have a chance to stand out in that particular game. And if you're into fantasy football, that might be helpful to you. So what I'll do is go through these games, and then at some point I'll have to have another podcast to continue on. I don't know how long this will take since this is the first time I'm doing this, but we'll see. Because every game will have different stats that might be broken, different records that might be broken or moved up in the all-time standings. But some games, there's maybe only one player going to do anything. And in fact, I think there's one team that doesn't have anybody that's going to possibly break a record this week or move up in the standings as far as record goes. That makes it quick. I can go through each game fairly quick that way. So let's give it a go and see how it goes. So the first game up, Dallas Cowboys versus the Philadelphia Eagles. That game is Thursday night, 8:20 p.m. First game of the season. So all-time record, the Cowboys lead the series against the Eagles, 74 wins to 58 losses. So they played a fair amount of times against each other. All right, so let's look at some of the records that we're looking at in this game. As far as the Eagles goes, there's really nothing that I see. Now, when it comes to the Cowboys, this is a record that Dak Prescott wouldn't like to break, but he will most likely. And that's the quarterback sacks. Currently, he's fourth all-time in sacks as far as Dallas Cowboys go. He's been sacked 256 times. It's likely that he could move as high as second all time in this category. Troy Aikman had 259 sacks, and Don Meredith, way back in the 60s, had 257 sacks. So Dak Prescott only needs to be sacked one time to tie Don Meredith, 2 to pass him, 3 to tie Aikman, and 4 to pass him. Now, this is a possibility, definitely, that he'll tie Meredith in this game. I would bet money that he'll be sacked at least once in this game, and more likely maybe a couple of times. So he should move up this list this week, especially considering their line is a little bit questionable, their offensive line, and he will be passing a lot. So there's a rush is going to be on for him. So that's it as far as players on that team. Now, when we're looking at the fantasy outlook for this game, well, obviously Jalen Hurts right now is being ranked as the number one quarterback going into week 1. I know there's, when you're talking about the overall season, you have Lamar Jackson and so forth, but going into this game, based on defenses and so forth, they got Jalen Hurts as a possible leading contender for fantasy this week as far as quarterbacks go. And I wouldn't doubt it. Whether he's number one, he's going to be in the top 5 this week, most likely. So he's a good quarterback if you have him. Obviously, you're probably going to start him. But depending what type of league you're in, Jalen Hurts is big. Now, one that is being listed way down at number 13, and I think this is really questionable. Dak Prescott is currently being ranked as the 13th best quarterback going into week 1. Now, part of it is because he is going against the Eagles defense, which is extremely difficult defense. But on the other hand, when you look at this team, this is going to be a passing team. Their running backs, none of them are quality. I don't know what else they're going to do but throw the ball. So I doubt seriously that Prescott finishes this week as the number 13 quarterback. In fact, I think he's going to spend the season hanging around the top 5, most likely. So those couple of quarterbacks looking at. Now, when you're looking at the running backs, like I said, obviously you're starting Saquon Barkley. He's listed as the number 1 running back. So you've got the number 1 quarterback and running back going into this game against the Cowboys. And as far as the Cowboys go, they don't even have a running back that is worth mentioning. None of their running backs are in the top 20. So they just don't have any good running backs. And I don't know what they're going to do except pass the ball. I mean, you've got backups that have better standing than the starters for the Cowboys. So in that area, there's nothing to look at. Looking at the wide receivers, though, this is a little different now. CeeDee Lamb, obviously, he'll be targeted quite heavily. He's in the top 5 as far as quarterbacks going into this game. So he's somebody you want to have starting. A.J. Brown against Dallas is in the top 10. He's another one to look at. And again, somebody that I'm putting a lot of stock into going into the season, and that's George Pickens. Right now, they have him listed as 30th in some of these polls. This is on ESPN. So you've got a category of 7 different people giving their suggestions, and Pickens they have at 30th overall. Now, one guy has him at 21. I think that's much more likely. I see Pickens being a kind of like Higgins, extremely good, one of your best second wide receivers on the team. I think he's going to go well over 1,000 yards this season, as will Lamb, obviously. So he's somebody you could pop in there and really get a big bang out of for your team. All right, and we'll finish it up with a quick look at the tight ends. Now, as far as tight ends go, neither team's tight end is in the top 10, so nothing particularly special about either one. I mean, in fact, Dallas Goedert for Dallas is 12th and Jake Ferguson is 13th. So, and again, Jake Ferguson could be a little surprised as, like I said, Dallas will be throwing the ball all over the field. All right, let's move to the game number 2. This is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a big game, and it's not even in the United States, but it is a second game, and it will be played on Friday, September 5th at 8 p.m. So that'll be a big game. It's going to be, even though it's in Brazil, Los Angeles Chargers are the home team. And the only category here, which is an interesting one in a way, because it's a kicker, it's in the scoring department, all-time scoring for the team. Currently, their Cameron Dicker, their kicker, is 11th all-time. He needs 7 points to tie, 8 points to pass Keenan Allen, the wide receiver for the team, and as an all-time scorer. So we'll be watching that, see if that happens. So that's the only scoring thing for them. Now with Kansas City, already Andy Reid is the number 1 coach all time with wins, with 143 for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he'll just continue to extend that record. And the same goes for quarterback. There's not a lot to look at because Patrick Mahomes leads the team all time in passing yards and in passing TDs. So he's got those categories wrapped up. He'll just continue to extend his lead out. And the same goes with receptions. Kelsey leads the team all time in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving TDs. So you've got 3 people, 1 coach and 2 players that are already the all-time leaders on their team. And it's just a matter of how far they extend their records. Obviously, Mahomes has a chance to push his record way out there. All right, so not a lot happening in that game as far as fantasy outlook for this week. Now, looking at the quarterbacks this week in the fantasy outlook, looking at the fantasy outlook between the Chargers and the Chiefs. Right now, Justin Herbert against Kansas City is the 14th ranked quarterback, and Mahomes is 7th ranked. I tell you what, I don't put any faith in Mahomes, especially with some of the receiving issues with Rice being out for the first 6 games. But until I see him change the style of play, and I saw a little bit of it in preseason, but not that he's not a great quarterback, but as far as fantasy goes, he's been a big burner. So I don't want to pick him up, and I don't want to play him until I see him really produce. The same goes with Justin Herbert. I think he is a good quarterback as well, but until they decide to pass the ball more than they do, they like to run it. So until they actually start passing, and they may have to against Kansas City, but I think his spot at 14th is about right for him. So really the quarterback is somebody I'm not going to touch in this game, really. Now, as far as the running backs go, here's a little different story, though not according to the odds makers here. Omari and Hampton, I think, is going to be quite good this year, but they have him down in the middle of the pack at 17th best running back this week. I don't know. I guess, again, it's a waiting game to see how he's going to be used, how much he's going to be, like I said, used, and we'll see after that. But Isaiah Pacheco's another one. I don't trust him either. So these running backs are very questionable. Pacheco's being ranked at 20th right now. So far, really, there's nobody in this game that, as far as fantasy goes, that I'm thrilled about. And the same when we get to the wide receivers. I just, highly questionable for me. Xavier Worthy is the leading wide receiver for Kansas City. Now, that could be a possibility because with Rice out, Worthy did pretty good. And when you look at his ratings on this ESPN fantasy list, it's all over the map. One person has him at 8th best wide receiver. Another one has him at 26th. So again, this is something when I'm in fantasy, I want somebody who's going to break out, obviously. Now, best ball, maybe you want to take a shot, but he's somebody I'm not going to start, I guess, until I see really how he does. Now, Ladd McConkey is definitely the wide receiver. He should be steady, but he's still only the 13th wide receiver, so he should not be your starting. I hope he's not your number 1 wide receiver. I put it that way. Number 2, not bad. So we'll see in that category. All right, looking at the tight ends. Well, Kelsey is somebody that's saying he's coming back, and they have him as the sixth best tight end going into this week. That could be about right for him. We'll see, especially with Rice out and it's early in the season. He's going to be in the best shape he's going to be in all season, probably. So maybe he'll have a good game. All right. As far as tight ends, that's really the only one. So for this game, there's nobody I'm thrilled about playing. Obviously, you're going to play McConkey because I'm sure you picked him up in the first few rounds of the draft. So he'd be about the only one I'd be really excited to see play. All right, game number 3, Arizona Cardinals versus the New Orleans Saints. Now, all these games now will be on Sunday for a while. All right, can't wait for that day. So in this game, you know what I forgot to do on the Kansas City game? I'll do this real quick. The Chiefs lead the all-time series against the Chargers, 71 wins to 58 to 1. So fairly decent lead in that one. Now, going back to the Arizona Cardinals versus the Saints, they haven't played that many times, but they're tied at 16 wins apiece. So they're going to break this. One of them is going to come out leading, most likely, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't expect a big year out of the Saints this year. Now, in this, as far as the Saints go, being the home team, we'll start with them. Again, Alvin Kamara leads the team. He's the all-time leader in rushing yards and rushing TDs. Now, when it comes to receiving, here's an interesting thing. Alvin Kamara right now is 7th all-time with the Saints in receiving, even though he is a running back. Marquise Colston had 9,759 yards. He's the number 1 receiver for the Saints. But Alvin Kamara is 7th right now with 4,762 yards. He only needs 29 yards, 30 yards. We'll put it at 30 yards, and he'll pass Jimmy Graham to move up to 6th all time for the Saints. I think it's a good probability that he breaks that and moves up one level. Same goes for touchdowns. Now, this might be a little more difficult, but and now we're talking receiving touchdowns. Like I said, he's already got 60 rushing touchdowns. He's got 25 receiving touchdowns. Henry Child is 8th with 27, and Kamara is 9th with 25. So he gets a couple, he ties 3, he passes him. And now this might be a record that might take a week or two, maybe longer, because we're talking receiving, not rushing. But I do expect Alvin Kamara to have a lot of receptions. Now, Marquise Colston leads this category as well with 72 TDs. So Alvin Kamara is a player that is always sneaky good because people don't want to pick him because he's getting older, but then he produces. Now, Alvin Kamara, again, when we're talking about running backs receiving the ball, this is in the entire NFL, not just the Saints. Currently, Larry Centers is number 1 all time with 827 receptions by a running back. Alvin Kamara is 8th. He's behind Keith Byers by only 5. Alvin Kamara has 573 receptions. So he gets 5 receptions. He ties Byer. He gets 6. He moves into 7th all time in the NFL as far as receiving, as far as receptions go. So he's really had as equally good career as a receiver as he has a running back. Now, the same goes with touchdowns. I'm sorry, in yards, not touchdowns, yards. Again, he's about to crack the top 10. Marshall Faulk had 6,875 yards to number 1 all time. Alvin Kamara is 11th right now, but he only needs 10 yards receiving to move up to 10th. 11 yards, he'll pass LaDainian Tomlinson, who's 10th all time. Alvin Kamara has 4,762 yards receiving. So like I said, 11 yards, he's into the top 10. And the same goes with touchdowns. Right now, he needs 2 touchdowns. He moves into the top 10 to tie Joe Morrison at 27. So Alvin Kamara has 25. So he's somebody we're going to be watching the whole season, I think, as he moves up all-time NFL records, not just team records. Pretty impressive. All right. On the defense, Cameron Jordan's already the all-time leader with 160 tackles for loss. That leads the team by quite a bit. Now, when it comes to sacks, Cameron Jordan is second all-time behind Ricky Jackson. Cameron Jordan has 121 and a half sacks. Ricky Jackson has 123. So Cameron Jordan needs 1.5 sacks to tie 2 sacks to become the all-time leader, not only in tackles for loss, but also in sacks. So there's quite a bit in this game as far as Saints go to watch. It makes it interesting. I know Saints might get clobbered, but it does make it interesting to watch, especially Alvin Kamara on offense and Cameron Jordan on defense. Now, as far as the Arizona Cardinals go, category that you don't like, and that's Kyler Murray, has thrown 57 interceptions in his career for 8th all-time on the team. Kurt Warner's 7th right now at 59. So 2 interceptions, he ties Kurt Warner to move into 7th, tie for 7th. 3, he's in 7th by himself. Category you really don't want to move into, but he is heading that way. Now, another one is running back, and this is James Conner. Currently, Jim Otis is 3rd all-time with the team with 3,863 yards. James Conner is 4th with 3,668. So obviously he'd have to have a big game. He'd have to have almost 200 yards rushing to catch Jim Otis. But I think probably not this game, but next game. So we'll look at this again next week to see if how much closer he is to Jim Otis and how many yards he needs next week. Now, tackles for loss. This is an interesting one because Calais Campbell is the team leader all time with 107. Now he's come back. He's looking also to set the record all time. And we'll look at that as he gets a little closer. Depending on how well he does, he could become the all-time leader in this category. But he's already the all-time leader with 107 tackles for loss. One more category is in scoring, and that's Matt Prater's active right now. He's got 354 points. He needs 6 points, 7 points, and he moves into 10th all-time with the team. So we'll watch that. Good chance he does that. Now, when we're looking at the fantasy outlook for this game, you're looking at the 2 quarterbacks here. Obviously, the quarterback situation for the Saints is all up in the air, so that neither one of those guys, I don't think anybody's starting them for sure. I would doubt it seriously. But right now, Kyler Murray's right solidly at 9th as far as quarterbacks go. Now, if he has a better season than he did last year and he does run the ball a little more, he has a good chance to move up into the top 5 as far as that goes. Now, the other two quarterbacks, there's not even anything to even look at there. Like I said, with the running back situation, now that's one area where New Orleans hopefully has a standout. Right now, James Conner against New Orleans is ranked 14th and Alvin Kamara is ranked 13th. So they're side by side. You know what? I've won league championships with James Conner, and even Alvin Kamara, but James Conner specifically, with the doubt that they have how well he'll do. But he gets the ball a lot. He scores a lot of touchdowns. So I think James Conner is easily a top 10 player. And all these times I'm talking point PPR leagues. So those are your running backs. And I think they both have a chance, but especially Conner to move up into the top 10 this week. Now, as far as wide receivers, here's a wide receiver that I don't touch normally. Let me look at these wide receivers. Wow. Marvin Harrison is 19th. I'm a little surprised that he's that low because people have been drafting him much higher. So we'll see how he does. He's a player I'm not touching. He didn't look that great to me last year, even though he did score a lot of touchdowns receiving. But we'll see if they change his role in the game, and we'll see how he does. So another one for New Orleans that I don't touch, and that's Chris Olave, and it looks like no one else is either. Analyst has him at 22nd. The worst is 41 with a ranking of 38th overall. That's where I have him. You don't know the quarterback situation. And as far as a player, I try not to pick Olave unless he's just really drops down the draft board because he can't stay on the field. And I just don't want to even mess with him. He's one of those few players that I just say, I'm not going to even bother. I just don't trust him at all. Now, when it comes to receiving the ball, that is Trey McBride. He's number 2 right now. Some people have him at number 1, some have him at number 3. But he's number 2 overall. And against the Saints, he should have a pretty good game. Though Brock Bowers is against New England, so he should also have a good game. But he's definitely one you're going to have starting your entire season. He's just too good not to. So I'll have him on any league I have him with, I'll have him playing right off the bat. All right, let's look at game number 4. Carolina Panthers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars are my team. They're the home team here. Now, when we're looking at them, and this is a tough one to figure out, but it is interesting. As far as rushing TDs go, Maurice Jones-Drew is all-time with 68. But Travis Etienne is 5th all-time with 18. Big difference, but he's 18. Stacey Mack is 4th all-time with 19. So Travis Etienne only needs 1 touchdown rushing to tie Mack, 2 to pass him. This is hard to figure out because in preseason, and I think this could be the way it is, unless Etienne scores from, say, 10 yards out or something, it's very likely that Bigsby or Tootin has the ball down near the goal line. So this could be the fact that it only needs 1 makes it a possibility, a good one. But on the other hand, he's not somebody that seems to get the ball near the end zone. Now, another one right here in the top 10 is Trevor Lawrence is tied with Mark Brunell for number 9 all time. 2 quarterbacks are tied in the top 10 for rushing TDs with 14 apiece. But Trevor Lawrence runs it in one time. He moves up to 9 by himself. Well, there's 2 players to watch as far as rushing TDs go. Now, Josh Hines-Allen is already the all-time leader with 63 tackles for loss for the team. Not as high as a lot of other teams, but being that he shouldn't be leaving this team anytime soon, he should be able to push this up quite a bit over the years and hopefully push it up over 100 at some point. All right. Same goes for sacks right now. Josh Hines-Allen is 2nd all-time in sacks with 53. Tony Brackens is 1st with 55. Josh Hines-Allen has a big game. Let's say he gets 3 sacks in this game. He's number 1 all-time. So we'll definitely be watching that. And then one more, Dwayne Smoot is 10th all-time with 23.5 sacks. Trayvon Walker is 9th and with 24. So those 2 players, Smoot was on the team back from 2017 to 2023, and he's back now. Those 2 will be fighting it out to try to catch Paul Spicer for the 8th all-time. And that might happen within a few weeks. We'll see. We'll keep a track of that one. All right. Now, when we're looking at the Carolina Panthers, not that this is anything to brag about, but the Carolina Panthers have had only 10 coaches in there since they started in 76. 10 coaches. So the fact that Dave Canales could move into a tie for 6th all-time in coaching wins is pretty funny, really. But he has 5 wins. Steve Wilkes has 6 wins. Steve Wilkes only played part of 2022. That was it. He had 6 wins. So interestingly, he can move all the way to 6th place already with a total of 6 wins if he wins this game today. All right. One more, and that is, Chuba Hubbard, 6th all-time with the Carolina Panthers as far as rushing, and he had a good season last season. 5th all-time is Deshaun Foster with 3,336 yards. So Chuba Hubbard needs about 162 yards this game, which might be a lot, though it'll be interesting to see how the defensive line is for the Jaguars. But if he does get that many, he moves up to 5th all-time. Jonathan Stewart is number 1 all-time with over 7,300 yards. So it's a long way to go for Chuba Hubbard. So those are some of your players. Now, when you're looking at the fantasy outlook, this is a difficult one because, especially for the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is 10th right now as far as quarterbacks go. And I think that's kind of a proper spot for him because it's really interesting to see how he's going to do. Is he going to have a season like he had a couple of years ago or like last year, which wasn't good last year? So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But if he does pick up Liam Cohen's system and it is as good as talked about, and he has a year like Baker Mayfield, he'll be a top 5 quarterback. So he's definitely somebody to watch, and we'll see what happens with that. But he's somebody I'm kind of excited for, but I wouldn't want to start him right now. I'm more of a wait and see kind of thing going there. Now, as good as Bryce Young looked at the end of the last year, he's still not a quarterback that you're going to want to start. Maybe in a league with super flex, you might have him as your second quarterback, but they just don't throw the ball. They're going to want to run it, and they have a more of a slower tempo. So despite the fact that Jacksonville's their defense was not that great last year, so he could have a good game. He's, again, somebody I'm not going to really want to start right away. So that's a look at the top 4 games, the first 4 games, let's put it that way. We will pause here, and I will pick it up in my next podcast. We'll continue on with more games in the next podcast, which I'll be putting out in a little bit. So for this podcast, that's a wrap, and we'll talk to you next time.